what question should the audit committee chair be asking audit leadership?
I think there's two things that the audit committee chair should always be kind of coming back to at the end of the day. And the first ones were there any hiccups? Were there any disagreements, right? I need to be aware of that. So I need to know how this audit went. I need to know, even if it's not an audit, maybe it's just a research project or it's a project or a sub-focus that the group is working on, or it's an investigation, right? How did it go? How was the interaction with management? Were there any hiccups? Were there any disagreements? Because otherwise, how do we ensure that oversight capacity, right, for management? And how do we go through this? So we really need to start understanding what are the processes that are happening? Are these relationships working? Is this being treated with the respect that it needs to be? And that's always the first side of it. But then the second thing that I always like to recommend is the relationship on benchmarking. And I don't think that this gets enough attention, right? So to me, when we think about benchmarking, we need to say, well, how are we doing compared to others in our industry? How are we doing compared to things that you have seen in your experiences? Are there any places where we could improve, right? Are there spots where our internal controls aren't doing as well? Is there a better way to do this process, right? So a lot of efficiency type of questions that come out. And what I love about auditors is whether you're internal or external, you know all about the organization. You know the operations, you know the business, you know the financials, you know the interaction, you know the people. And by the time you do this enough, you really have a good understanding of what are the best practices. And so often, maybe the auditor doesn't want to come in and say, hey, you could totally do this 100 times better, because that wasn't really the point of the audit, right? The point of the audit was, is this correct? And we're like, well, yeah, it's correct, but it could have been done in half the time. But if you engage in that and you ask, right, I want that information, I need that feedback. Come tell me what we could do better. What do you see as opportunities for us? I don't think we leverage the audit knowledge that's out there. There's so much knowledge about the organization, about the industry, about best practices that people don't ask about. And I don't find sometimes auditors are afraid to give that feedback if it's not asked for. And so the second thing I always recommend that they reach out is really just come out and say, hey, how could we do better? Where are our opportunities? How are we doing comparatively? And let us know so that we can act on it and we can always move the needle forward.